The passage I chose is Proverbs chapter 9, verses 13 to 18. Proverbs is an example of the biblical wisdom tradition and raises questions of values, moral behavior, the meaning of human life, and the right conduct. The repeated theme is that the fear of God, meaning submission to the will of God, is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom is prized for her role in creation. God acquired her before all else, and through her he gave order to chaos. And since humans have life and prosperity by conforming to the order of creation, seeking wisdom is the goal of the religious life. Here is the history context of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is the second book of the third section called Writings of the Hebrew Book. Proverbs was written to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the young, and to make the wise even wiser. The historical setting for the book of Proverbs probably relates to the period of monarchy, especially from the time of Solomon until the defeat of the southern kingdom in 586 BC. Although we have already noted that the original Hebrew title of the book was the Proverbs of Solomon, it is clear from statements in the book itself that Solomon is not the author of the Proverbs, though the majority of the Proverbs are credited to him. The original audience of the Proverbs are not explicitly identified. In chapters 1 to 9, there are generic addresses to the young sons and both the simple and the wise. The emphasis in this first section tends upon the young in age. The history of Christianity and the ancient Greek mythology both has similarities and differences. Christianity as a religion believes in one God. Greek mythology as a religion is the belief in multiple gods. Even their definitions are different. The faith of Greek mythology and Christianity are pretty similar. Both of the Christians and the Greeks pray to their gods and ask for the forgiveness because both of them believe that gods or God are above humans. They also believe that gods or God have superpower to help humans. They both separate light and dark, and also they both created different things of the earth in series. They have different amount of gods, and the way that they split the different characteristics of the earth up. Here's the literary context. Since God is restoring the Jews to his name, he is giving them instruction to be wise, to not fall astray to worldly desires. By not falling astray into foolishness, man is able to live a more abundant life and avoid making as many mistakes. This fits into the meta-narrative as foolishness leads to a sense of spiritual death, which would be a greater separation from God. Avoiding the foolishness can lead to a greater relationship between man and God, and this leads to a shalom. The story before this passage is the invitation of wisdom. The word of God is wisdom in which God makes known his good will towards man. God is the word is this wisdom to whom the Father has committed all judgment. God shows his grace and godness as the redeemer of it. The story after this passage is the Proverbs of Solomon. Most parents live the most part of their lives for their children. Children who are living for Jesus are a joy to any parents. The surrounding stories reveals Proverbs 9:13 to 18 that one should avoid the foolishness. Here is the analysis of the passage. In Proverbs 9:13, by the foolish woman, some understand the wicked preachers who counterfeit the word of God, as appears in Proverbs 9:16, which were the words of the true preachers, as in Proverbs 9:4. But their doctrine is as storm waters, meaning that they are men's traditions, which are more pleasant to the flesh than the word of God, and therefore they themselves boast of it. In Proverbs 9:14, she sits at the door of her house, which donates her diligence in watching for occasions of sin. In Proverbs 9:15, to call passengers who are going innocent and directly about their own business without any unchastened design. In Proverbs 9:16, who is simple, which title is not given to them by her, for such a reproach would not have allured them, but driven them away, but by Solomon, who represents the matter of her invitation in his own words, that he might discover the truth of it, and thereby deter those whom she invited. In Proverbs 9:17, storm waters are sweet, a proverbial expression for lawful pleasures, which are said to be sweet, partly from the difficulty of obtaining them, and partly because the very prohibition renders them more agreeable to man's corporate nature. In Proverbs 9:18, the dead are there, the dead in sin and spiritual dead, and those who are in high road to be eternally dead. My own observation, one of the prohibitable lessons to be learned from this chapter is that there is nothing more inconsistent with wisdom than the service of those impure lusts, which have been the rule of all those who have been led by them. And therefore with this the wise man concludes his preface to the book of Proverbs, again repeating Proverbs 9:10, that first principle on which all religion is built, and wherewith he began this preface, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom. Indeed, there is no true wisdom but religion. The application. The real issue in the world today is that some people do not follow God's plan. The life of folly is a lifestyle of immoral living, runs counter to God's plan of the life, and leads to death. Definitely, Jesus will warn people to avoid this broad way and follow the straight and narrow path of righteous, wise living. This passage teaches people that they should avoid the foolishness and be wise. Last, thank you for watching, and here's my works edit.